Welcome back to my channel, guys. So today I'm reacting to a video about Andrew Wilson on the Whatever podcast. What he has to say about scripture and what I think he's gotten wrong. About if women can teach the gospel. These are their words, by the way, and that kind of stuff. And there are some things that he's gotten wrong. Now, I do want to point out something real quick. I've seen some of his debates. I've noticed with this guy is he switches between worldviews and only uses God's moral standard when it is convenient to him. Depending on the audience and the podcast he on, his kind of switches. So he's never really consistent with what he does or says. And I see contradictory in what he says and confusion, causing a lot of confusion. So that's the reason why I want to break this down. Now, I'm not saying he's doing it purposely. He might not be noticing he's doing it. I'm not sure. But whether you are not doing it intentionally or not, you're still doing it. Before we get started, can y'all give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel? It'll help my channel grow. I cannot do it without you guys. Let's get into it. Let's see what we got.
What offends me is actually your use of the law against women, because I don't think that, like, that woman who was here, who had been born again, and she had gone such a long ways, and it doesn't matter the way you say it. Like, I know how your stance on tone, so it's fine by me. But you were saying that she was somehow not worthy of being who she was because she was teaching other women.
I don't think he said that.
Correct me on that.
So let me respond to both of these points. Point one, she can't teach other women because women can't be clergy in Christianity. Two, she made it a point that niceness was a part of Christian doctrine, and it's not, and it never has been. And I pointed out that this is not a Christian virtue. She's teaching falsely. Women cannot be clergy in Christianity, period. They're not allowed to be clergy, period. Never. Not even once. They're not allowed to even once. You can't be like, oh, we're just funning. We just made one for the fun of it. Even if the results of it, you could argue the results or the consequences of this might be better in some way, it doesn't matter. The purpose of the religion is not that the consequences are always good. That's not the purpose of the religion.
First thing I noticed, the words that are used in like clergy and matron, what he will be using later in the video, those are not even in scripture. That's not even in the Bible. It's not even a translation in the Bible. Women can't teach at all. And then later he will say, but they can teach. It's kind of contradiction right there. It's kind of causing confusion. He may not be intending that, but that's what it's coming off at. The concept of clergy and matron did not originate from the Bible. That's not what scripture says. This has caused so much confusion with people thinking that women can't teach at all. So what does scripture have to say? Let's use the Bible's words, not words that we use through culture over time. First Timothy says, let a woman learn quietly with all submissiveness. I do not permit a woman to teach or to exercise authority over a man. Rather, she is to remain quiet. The point of this is order within the church. It is order within the church. It has nothing to do with outside of the church. Let's continue. Let's break it down more.
I understand. So I do know that that's backed up biblically. And I'd also like to say that in First Timothy, it says, treat older women like your mothers and treat younger women like they're your sisters with purity. And I'm wondering, where do you follow the law on that?
Well, yeah, let's dive into this. We're talking about matrons, you're talking about Paul in this case. And I quote this quite a bit myself. And when you're talking about matrons and how matrons are supposed to teach, they're supposed to teach from a position of a pure heart to only women. They're not supposed to have a ministry. Ministry would imply both. It's okay for matrons to give matronly wisdom.
That woman said
hang on,
women.
Let me finish. I'm answering the question. It's okay for matrons to give matronly wisdom, but they're not allowed to teach the gospel. They're not allowed to do that. That's not their place.
So this is wrong. This is not what scripture says. We're going to look to what scripture actually says about this, not what he is creating. The Bible does not say that matrons are supposed to teach only from a position of a pure heart and only to women. Yes, we should teach with a pure heart, having a pure heart, and the way he used it in the context that he used it, it's implying that you must already occupy a perfect state of moral purity before teaching. Now, it may not be intentional. I'm not saying that, but there's still confusion. Now you can say that should be teaching from a pure heart, yes. Even if you were to say that, let's say even if you were to say that, that's still not what scripture is saying right here. His wording creates new categories that the Bible never really makes. Now let's see what scripture actually says. Titus 2:3, older women likewise are to be reverent in behavior, not slanderers or slaves to much wine. They are to teach what is good, and so train the younger women to love their husbands and children, to be self-controlled and pure, working at home, kind, and submissive to their own husbands. Yes, it does say to have, your intentions should be pure, right? For everything that we do as Christians, we're supposed to have a pure heart. Our intentions are supposed to be pure, right? But that's not what the scripture is actually trying to imply here. That's just a part of it, Scripture does not say matron. If you look at the Greek word says older women. It doesn't say matron. The thing I wanted to point out is this. He says that women cannot have ministry. That is not true. Now, to better understand this, if you go into the original Greek text, you will see that ministry means service. Culture has confused this with meaning ministering, like pastoring a church. Get the Greek text. I'm going to put it on the screen so you guys can see. I'm going to mispronounce these, but I'm going to give it a shot. Diakonia, diakonos, and diakonose, meaning servant, deacon, or minister. And I'm sure I messed that up. I'm sure I did. I don't speak Greek, but I did the best I can. You know what I mean. Line is this. Ministry is just an English word for serving. There's many different ways you can do that, like sharing the gospel, prophesying, using the gifts that God gave you. And it's just not for men, it's for women also. And there's women in the Bible who do all these things. A prime example for this is Romans 16. Phoebe was a servant of the church. It is one of the clearest example of a woman actually serving in ministry. So the next thing he said that women cannot teach the gospel. The first thing I want to point out is this. Nobody can teach the gospel. The gospel is unteachable. Now, he might have misspoke on this one. You can share the gospel, proclaim the gospel, but you cannot teach it. It's unteachable. We are saved by grace through faith, not by works. But no, the Bible does not forbid women to share the gospel, to prophesy, and to speak and to teach. It is only in church. It is to keep order within the church. Women cannot be pastors. They cannot have authority or teach over the man in the church. Just wanted to clear up the confusion because, like I said, maybe it wasn't intentional. Maybe he's not trying to make it come out that way. I hope this clears some things up for you guys that are wondering. Let me know what you guys think. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next one.